That's good. That's real good. Hello, and welcome to Anatomy of the Cigar. This is going to be a weekly or bi-weekly video series where I look into things that are all about cigars. I'm not just going to talk about the cigar itself. I'm also going to look at things like brand histories, the evolution of some cigar products over time, and I might even go into how tobacco fueled our economy in the US. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. This first video in this mini-series is going to be about something we all know and love, being that we're all cigar smokers and we all have different tastes. And that video is going to be about cigar wrappers. So I'm not just going to talk about how they look and how they taste. I'm also going to talk about how they're cultivated, how they're produced, and what really sets them apart from all the other counterparts out there and all the other different types of wrappers. The first video in this series is going to be about my absolute favorite wrapper, Maduros. Just like the one I'm smoking here, it's a cane Maduro, straight Ligero. Not only is it a Maduro wrapped stick, it also has a Ligero filler and binder, so it's a real put you in your seat kind of cigar, and I can't get enough of them. So now that I have, told you what I'm smoking and that's out of the way, let's really get into the meat and potatoes, what this video is all about. So first things first, what's Maduro even mean? Well, it translates into ripe or mature. So most of us just know them as those really dark sticks that are in our B&M's humidors, or that we buy online. But there's really a lot more to these beautiful works of art than just what they look like. So knowing the translation now, it should come as no surprise that it takes a long time to make these. A lot longer than your standard wrappers. Months, or in some cases even years, can go by before these are rolled and turned into cigars and shipped out for our enjoyment. So, why take all the extra time and effort? Well, the answer to that's pretty simple, and that's the fact that people change, and their palates change, and therefore, the market has to change. We, as cigar smokers, grew in both number and palate differences, especially here in the US. We all got bored of the same old flavor profiles that you could find in what was on the market back then. 45 years ago, the Maduro didn't even exist. So the big brands really put their blenders to the test to see what they could come up with. We wanted something more bold and exciting and complex to smoke. Therefore, enter the Maduro, through some experimentation and risk, of course. Not only did the blenders experiment with fermentation times and temperatures, they also experimented with what kind of leaves they could use. Some of the most popular leaves that they used back then, and still today, are the Connecticut broadleaf, the San Andreas, the Matafina from Brazil, and the Habano, which basically just means Cuban seed. And really, if you want to get technical, anything other than natural, wrapped, or candela is considered a Maduro, but whatever. Like flavor, the Maduro wrapper can also come in a variety of shades, from a light brown to an almost jet black. The lightest of which is the Colorado Maduro. It's a light brown, and sometimes manufacturers might even call this a dark natural, but that's not really used today. It was kind of an older term. You might find it every now and then, but it's pretty much gone now. It's considered a Colorado Maduro is the most popular phrase. Next in line is the standard Maduro. This one's a little bit darker than the Colorado Maduro. It's got the look of more of a coffee bean or some milk chocolate. And next we have the double Maduro, or the Maduro Maduro. And it looks a lot closer to a dark chocolate, or an espresso bean. And finally we have the Oscuro. It is very dark, jet black, and very shiny and oily. It's not the most popular out there, but if you can find a really good one, definitely worth the smoke. As the shades get darker and darker, the leaves gain more oil and become thicker due to the extended fermentation time. This is what gives the Maduro wrapper that really oily sheen and that really buttery, smooth, soft feel that we all really know and love. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh no, it's really dark, and that means it's going to be really strong and potent and super full body. Well, that's not always the case. As a lot of you probably already know, darker doesn't necessarily mean stronger. Truthfully, the extended fermentation times really makes it more mellow. As starches are converted into sugars through the extended fermentation and higher temperature, more ammonia and more nicotine is released, making it a softer smoke. And it also imparts a much sweeter and earthier taste that most Maduro smokers really look for and enjoy. But be warned, just because it has a Maduro wrapper and the wrapper itself is more mellow and lower nicotine, that doesn't always mean it's going to be a mellow, soft smoke. Some Maduro cigars can be really strong and knock you on your ass, like this one here. But that's mainly due to the filler and binder combination along with the Maduro wrapper. So you just kind of have to play around and see which ones you can handle and which ones you can't. But that's part of the fun of being a cigar smoker. It's experimentation and experiencing all the different blends that are out there. There's more than we can ever probably try in our lifetime, and that's pretty awesome, if you ask me. In short, a good Maduro wrapper takes a few things to really produce and produce right. Firstly, it takes patience. Secondly, it takes a blender with a really good eye and a good palate. And third, and most important, it takes time. Lots of time. As many of you know, I'm sure, more than, what do they say, 300 hands touch your cigar before you actually smoke it, between the planting and the farming and the curing and the drying and the fermentation and the rolling and the boxing and the blah, 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 blah. It's crazy. So you really have to take your time with it and be patient, and in some cases be willing to put out a pretty penny for that flavor profile that you're really, really chasing. Sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes you can find a good budget stick like this one here. Not that expensive, but either way, it's a handmade product that takes years to cultivate and produce. So in the end, every penny is really worth it, especially once you consider the flavor that's imparted into the smoke. So as I've mentioned a few times already, Maduros are my absolute favorite cigar to smoke. That being said, here's some footnotes about Maduros that's more about smoking them and not so much how they're made. Firstly, being that they're oily and a lot thicker than your standard wrapper, they can burn kind of wonky. Oil doesn't really like to burn evenly when it's soaked into something like this. I mean, shoot, you can even see here that while the cigar has been smoking beautifully, it's not exactly the straightest of burn. So, a few things you can do to kind of alleviate, either possible tunneling or a canoe or it going out on you or something like that. As with most cigars, a good light. Toast the foot of your cigar and then light it. You really want the foot of the cigar to be glowing a nice bright orange before you take it out of the flame. So doing that's really going to help alleviate any crazy canoeing issues you might come into. However, a touch-up might be needed from time to time. And another thing about Maduros, being that they're oily and more thick, they really don't like a higher RH. So if you're one of those guys that has a higher RH, the 69% or and above, you might find that you have a hard time with your Maduro staying lit or burning evenly. Easiest thing to do there, lower the RH down to about 65%. That's where I keep mine, especially because most of my humidor consists of Maduros. Well, I hope you've liked watching this video as much as I've liked making it for you. And I really hope that those little footnotes at the end kind of help you in your Maduro smoking experiences in the future. So, with all that being said, be on the lookout for the next installment in the anatomy of the cigar. The next video that I hope to produce either next week or the week after, pending work and life in general, that one's going to be all about Connecticut wrappers. So that's another really, crowd favorite out there, especially in the US, Connecticut. Funny. Uh, Either way, please feel free, go down into the comments, provide me with some suggestions of what you might want to see later on, some video ideas that you might like to see covered. And also, if you think of any or have any other sweet, awesome Maduro facts that I've missed and you think the community would like to know, put those out there. Let's have some conversation about this. But lastly, I want to know, what is your favorite Maduro cigar to smoke? So get down there, tell me what you want to smoke, what you like to smoke, and why you like to smoke them. I'll leave you to it. Hope this finds you well, and as always, puff on, misfits. Peace.